Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Wright-Heuman, Cartoonist Extraordinaire, and welcome to another interview for What the Gnomes Know, a comics anthology. With me today is Angela Boyle, the creator of the story Gnoir with a silent G. I'm still going to try to pronounce the G every single time I say it. We are doing this in support of the Kickstarter I just mentioned, What the Gnomes Know. You can see the URL at the bottom of your screen. We are currently working toward a stretch goal of 3,500. We did meet our base goal. At 3,500, we will be adding Q&A sections where we interview the creators and get more information about their process. And we'll also be able to give our contributors additional copies that they will be able to sell at cons and things like that on top of their normal page rate. We are also hoping to at least get to the next stretch goal beyond that, which is 4,500, which will allow us to also include some behind the scenes materials, concept art, and things like that. And also increase the page rate that we're paying all our creators. So we're very hopeful that we will be able to do that in the next 10 days. We're going for that final push. Currently, we are at 2,998, so we are just under halfway to the next big goal, and hopefully we'll be able to make that soon. So getting right into the interview, Angela is a creator out of Bellingham, Washington, right? You're still out of that part? Yep.
Yep.
The creator of Threadbare Memories, one of the organizers of the main organizer of the awesome Possum anthologies, which are all about natural science. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Is it Maker Comics? Is that the name?
Yeah, Maker Comics Live Sustainably.
And you were the writer on that, right?
Yes. And Les McLean was the artist.
Yeah, and that was through First Second, right? Yeah. So you're the cartoonist who's made it.
Sort of, yeah. I had one book published, yes, by someone other than me.
By the way, Jessica's in the chat and says, I love the hat.
Thank you.
We were just talking about that before getting on stream. I've been watching pretty much all of the videos that we've been putting out. By the way, there are a lot of other interviews. We'll be putting up a playlist with all of them in the not too distant future. And one of the things that I notice is whenever Angel's in one of the Gnome videos, Gnome hat.
Gnome hat, of course. I've been thinking what I would do for the next one. What am I going to wear?
Yeah, we'll just come like full robot cosplay is what we're going to have to do.
Mask. You won't see me at all.
We also have Alex from the anthology in there. And of course, Rainer, one of the head organizer for this. Woot woot for anthology organizers. So, Angela, you and I've actually been pretty excited for today because we get to talk nerdy mystery stuff.
Right, yeah.
For people who don't know, Angela and I met at the Center for Cartoon Studies in Vermont. We were in the same year and quickly discovered that we have kind of like similar tastes in trashy mystery television.
Yes.
And it has informed, I feel like that's informed a lot of our work.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that seems to make sense. You watch what you like, so you make what you like. Exactly.
And in your case, that has meant you've done mystery comics for both anthologies you've been involved with.
Yeah, I've been really focusing on mysteries in general lately, so these are excuses to finish something.
I just got a great suggestion for Rainer. We should all dress like the Flight of the Conchord robots. I was thinking like TWRP, but Flight of the Conchord, more people will get. But yeah, your two stories also are... You kind of introduced us to hybrid comics with your story in Seed of Truth in Lesson Secret.
Yeah. Which, look, I have the poster right there.
Oh, you do? Wow. I have a ton of those posters, and I just don't put things on my wall, so I keep forgetting to put it up.
Obviously, I put things on my walls.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember, you came across that style from somebody, right?
Yeah, Posey Simmons. She's British, and weirdly, she does kind of mystery style, not like murder mystery necessarily, but mystery style. She has 3 books out: Cassandra, Drake, Gemma Bovary, and another one, Tamara Drew. And they're all this style of, it mixes comics and prose. You have to read it like it's a comic with prose. it's just such a cool style. And I've always liked prose. I've always liked drawing. So comics seemed like a natural, well, let's put those together. But hybrid comics even more so because I can actually put the prose in.
Right.
So I'm loving it.
I actually have some samples so people can see what we're talking about. And for some reason, I accidentally closed Acrobat. But that's fine.
You get too exuberant in closing all your windows.
It's true. But we do have examples from Gnoir with a silent G. I'm bringing them up now.
Somewhere.
Apologies. For some reason, as soon as I was about to bring it up, the entire, like the option to show Acrobat disappeared.
Of course.
Yeah. But this is what we're talking about with the hybrid prose style. So it's almost like it makes you almost think of kids' books with just the illustrations in every page, but they're not just illustrations, they're straight up comics.
Yeah. You have to read it, the illustrations and prose in order, which makes for a very fun design challenge.
I was about to ask, like, one of the big tricks with full comics is leading the reader's eye from panel to panel and just controlling the flow of action. How does that work when you got text?
So I pretty much always write my comics in prose first anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's either in prose or completely no text and all illustration when I'm doing my initial work. So I then go through and highlight different types of text. So some of it should be text and some of it should be a straight illustration and some of it should be, a comic with panels. So I go through and mark all that up and then I place that in InDesign and figure out how much room I have, what can go where page breaks need to be. It's really nerdy and I really enjoy it. And so that means that when I draw pages, it looks more like this compared to that.
Right.
So you're seeing it separately.
Actually, let me make you larger so you can show that.
Mm.
Ooh,
These are my notes trying to figure out what goes in the background here.
Well, that leads actually into my next question. You work traditionally on this one.
Yeah. I usually
how'd you do your coloring on this?
This is watercolor. Yeah. So I did pen and ink and then watercolor. And then actually it has a lot of, not a lot, it has some digital manipulation too, because it's the noir theme. I tried to make it so that the noir parts that are like from the detective's point of view, her part of the story, they're darker. I desaturated those. You see when I showed this versus that, my illustration is much brighter and then it's very desaturated. And then when I did the other panels, I would up the saturation so they're very vibrant and sunny, or I would put a desaturated halo kind of around the detective there so that the contrast would be a little bit more noticeable. Right.
And I also did notice with talking about digital manipulation, the little knock there.
Oh, yeah. It's all digital text. I do all my layout in InDesign. I do some design lettering work for First Second, and they do all digital lettering now. So I've got a lot of experience.
You always did some crazy stuff with fonts. I remember, didn't you have like whole books where you'd practice fonts for different things?
Not whole books, but yeah, whole pages. When I did, what was it called? The end of the first year, Elementorum.
The mini thesis.
Yeah, I had 5 different characters. That was a bunch of shorts, and each one had a different font.
As someone who pretty much always uses like actual computer fonts whenever I do stuff, I'm always amazed by hand lettering.
Yeah, they were all different hand-lettered fonts. That's what I should clarify.
Also, Jessica just want to say she really likes how that art works. And also, we have a real creeper in the chat.
Ew. That's my husband.
Yeah.
For those who don't know.
We always joke that Abe is the actual cryptid of our group because we periodically just see him blurry in the background of Angela's videos.
Yeah. He's my team gnome.
Yeah. He does ask, Angela, did you have the gnome hat, or did you get it after making your gnome comic?
Both of my gnome hats are prior to making the gnome comic. This is
I'm not even remotely surprised. That's Abe's hat?
I made this for Abe. It's a Norwegian sleeping cap.
Mm.
And I happen to make it in red, and it's cute and comfortable. So.
And you actually made that too.
I knit this one, and the other one was a gift, but also hand knit. If I can find it, it's somewhere.
All right. Well, yeah. I'm curious what your process is like when you're writing these stories, because, like, as someone who's also done mysteries, they are hard to write.
Yeah. Well, these short ones are a little bit easier, but actually, I can plug my own little thing.
Sure.
Dodos discuss.flyingdodostudio.com. Abram Olsen over there and I have a podcast that we're trying to get back on track. And there was I think the last episode we posted was about him and me talking about this mystery and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I wanted the mystery to be, because it was so 13 pages, 13 half-letter pages. This is a really short mystery.
Yeah.
But I got in everything I wanted to get in. It helps that I did the hybrid because you can cram a little more story in with prose. So I usually start with bullet points. Mm-hmm. A lot of bullet points for everything I do. And then, what's this program? Scapple is a kind of like a mind map or a flowchart program. So especially when I'm doing a longer mystery, I'll organize the whole thing in there. I'll have, arrows showing what must come after what and mm-hmm. what order things go in. And it's lots of arrows, but it might only make sense to me, but it's very, very helpful.
It needs to make sense to you. That's how all these things work. Exactly. Yeah, I've recently started work again on the third of my mystery graphic novels, which I'd kind of put the script on break for a while working on other stuff. And jumping back into it, I remembered why I kind of got lost before, because this is by far the most complicated story I've ever done, and I'm trying to get back to organization to finish it. So I'll have to check out Scapple.
It's the same guys who do Scrivener, I think.
Then that's definitely a plus. I'm writing the thing in Scrivener.
Yeah, there's a few, like Draw.io is a more free-form version. But I've started
using Draw.io for, honestly, D&D because like I'm planning out a campaign that's going to also be very complicated. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but Draw.io has been helping. By the way, you say your podcast was dodosdiscuss.flyingdodostudios.com? Studio, singular.
Yeah.
Because
Abe can correct me if I'm wrong.
I have the power to put this stuff up on the screen. I just want to make sure I have that right.
Yes, that should be correct.
Cool. So you've been actually doing that podcast for has it been a full year yet?
Yes, but we kind of took a big break because back in May we moved from an apartment in town to a house out in the county, and we've been working on building a ADU, additional dwelling unit, mm-hmm. aka a mother-in-law unit for my mom. We took over the house. She's going to be in the ADU. Oh my gosh, we have not had time to record. Everything has been so crazy. And then we got a dog, and yeah, we have had no time to do anything, but
I get it.
Trying to get back into it. I have a lot of ideas.
I imagine we can expect a dog tax later, by the way.
Maybe. I shut my door.
Okay, fair enough.
Have to come up and open it.
Abe just suddenly bursts in with a dog.
Yeah, dog!
I can see him doing that. Like, it's a dog. Love it.
Love it. He's so cute.
But yeah, I also find it mildly funny that you're from Bellingham, Washington, which happens to be where my cousins were from. I just remember, dog's sleeping according to Abe.
Oh yeah, good. Finally.
Yeah. I just remember just randomly asking if by any chance you knew my cousins, and I mentioned the last name. You're like, that sounds vaguely familiar. And I'm like, they breed goats. And you're like, yeah, that doesn't narrow it down. Doesn't help.
No, my aunt lives like 3 doors that way, or that way. And yeah, she had goats when I was growing up. Everybody has goats.
Yeah. Apparently it's just a thing out there.
Well, they're handy. There's too many blackberries, and if you want to get rid of your blackberries, goats is the way to do it.
Last time I was out there, a goat took a chunk out of my watch. Little baby goat hopped up on my lap, and I was like, "Oh, this is cute," and just like took a bite of my digital watch and left.
I honestly can't say that surprises me.
Nope.
It's very on brand.
Yeah. So a lot of your other work prior to this, I'd mentioned Awesome Possum, which, if anyone doesn't know, is a fantastic series of anthologies where comic creators are brought in to talk about something in the natural sciences. Is it always an animal, or is it can be any topic?
It's anything that you think is cool about the natural world.
Yeah.
We've got obviously a lot of animals, but some people focus on an individual plant. Some people focus on a biologist or another scientist. Some people focus on like an area or a process. It's very, very broad. And I really like the ones that I love the animal ones, of course, because animals are great. But I love the ones that branch out from there, especially that's focused more on a process or an area. There's one that's about the cottonwoods. There's a bunch of cottonwoods in an area up in Canada, and someone did one about a river in Alaska. Just like the life cycle of these areas and why they're so cool and important.
What's it been like participating in an anthology as opposed to running one?
A little nerve-wracking.
You want to actually have your fingers and everything?
Please, can we fix this right now? Let's just do it. We can do this thing. But I've been very hands-off. It's good for me to practice.
Yeah,
I'm very busy with freelance work and stuff, so I wouldn't have really had time anyways.
It's a good problem to have, being busy.
Yes.
Yeah, I've kind of had the same problem because Rainer has been the lead on this particular project, and my control freak instincts have repeatedly kicked in. I've always had to remind myself, Rainer's handling it. And it's been good practice. Like, we're talking about switching off with each anthology, so I can get my control freak on next time with no guilt.
Yeah, and then you can learn from how the other one did the previous one, and both of you are just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, that's
learned a lot from you guys. That if I do a volume 5,
none of you can stop me.
He's going to take over the next one.
Yeah. You're doing great, Rainer, by the way. Just, I don't say it enough.
I can't wait to see this. It's going to be so cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this thing in print. And we really are trying to, like, part of the reason the Kickstarter came out when it did is because we realized we want to start this printing in December if we can. So we really are trying to get this out the door. We have the file almost completely done. We're just waiting on finding out how many of the additional stretch goals we get in so we know what to put in there. And we hopefully will be able to work from there. Cartoonists are power hungry, confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. If any of us ever got money, there'd be real trouble.
Yeah, I think the few times you see them do that, it's trouble.
I can't argue with that, come to think of it. Right. So yeah, you've did you mention, are you thinking about doing another Awesome Possum? That would be volume 6, volume 5?
Yeah,
5.
I often think about it and then remember that I don't actually have time to work on my own stuff. So why would I make it worse and have even less time for that?
I feel that. Having extra time is the eternal problem with a freelancer. You get used to having too much of it, and then you find out not having enough, which should be a good problem, is a nightmare.
Yeah. I keep going, okay, I'm going to take a couple days off because I just finished all my freelance, and then I'm going to work on my own stuff. And then I instantly get a new project, which is great, but also a little frustrating.
Yeah. It's
a weird position to be in.
It's, definitely one of those things that actually, come to think of it, have you been doing the con circuit also, or is that not restarted?
No, I haven't done any. There's only a few that I want to do, and they have not started back up yet. So the Olympia Comics Fest is really the number one that I want to go to, and they haven't started back up yet. That one is so much fun.
Do I remember, because you used to talk a lot about the West Coast convention scene when we were at CCS, because it was very different from what there was in New England. Can you talk a little bit about why it seemed so different? Because I think a lot of the people who are familiar with us are more familiar with the East Coast side of things.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to quantify. Maybe it's just that I'm a West Coast person, so it just felt more my style. But the shows that I like to go to, I think one of the things I liked about East Coast versus West Coast is that I found more what would be considered more of a comic fest rather than a Comic-Con. Comic-Cons being more superhero pop culture oriented, and the Comic Fest being more indie mini comics, that kind of thing, which I have found makes a big difference to me, both in how much I will enjoy it and in how much money I will make. The other one, Short Run Comic Fest in Seattle. So it's Olympia Comic Fest and Short Run are the two that I've been waiting for, and they've been postponing for COVID stuff.
Right. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I seem to remember you also talking up Emerald City Comic Con. Like, technically is a Comic Con as opposed to a Comic Fest, but didn't you?
I've gone a couple times, and it's really fun to go to, but I don't think I would want to actually have a booth. It's really expensive. Really fun to go to. It's ridiculous. It's huge. Yeah, because that's the Seattle version of San Diego Comic Con, I think. Yeah. So it's I think Abe and I went one year, and it was like 8 miles to walk every aisle. Yeah. We were very tired.
Yeah, I get it. I've been hesitant to do any of those specific big shows. Big anime cons I'll do, because I actually have good luck at those. But anytime I see the Comic Cons, I'm like, people are there to see the celebrities more than anything. And that's always a weird culture to try and sell non-official stuff at. Yeah. Funny thing, like, I'm part of the reason I'm bringing up tabling is Angela was one of my first tabling teachers in a lot of ways. I tabled for the first time while at CCS and shared a bunch of tables with Angela. And that was a lot of how I started learning how my sales game was going to work.
Yeah, that was always fun and a little terrifying. You are much more of a salesperson than me. You're very like, hey guys. Yeah. I'm like, hello.
I would love to see you share a table with Kelsey.
Oh God.
Because Kelsey is one of my other major tabling influences. We've also shared tables a bunch of times, and they are very much a salesman. It is
I am terrible at that.
Yeah. But it's funny because I think it would kind of work like a 1-2 punch. Like, you've mentioned before that you used to table with Abe, and Abe would usually be the one pulling people to the table, and you'd be drawing and talking to them when they got there. It's an incredibly effective way to do stuff.
It is. Yeah. It's been a while since I've actually tabled with Abe. I have, I guess you would call it stage fright. It's really hard for me to talk to people about my stuff in front of Abe. I know, it's super weird, but he sells my stuff better than I do, I think. So
that's often how it works. Like,
yeah, it's hard to sell your own stuff. Hey, look how bad I am.
Do you find it easier to sell Awesome Possum because it contains a lot of other people's stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I have the exact same experience. Like, part of the reason Less Than Secret works for me is I can say, check out everybody else's cool stuff.
Yes, I do happen to be in here, but look at this page, which I have nothing to do with.
Yeah, exactly. The great thing with Less Than Secret is everyone who flips through it, especially since I'm in Ohio, just flips through, sees the very first story and goes, Mothman, I'll take it.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's the fun thing about anthologies is seeing what draws someone's eye. They'll flip through and go, wait, what was that? Oh, that's so rad. I love this thing.
Speaking of, just to do a quick plug because it's kind of cool news, and I don't know if it's been brought up in one of the live streams yet. We just got notification a little while ago that 2 of the stories from Less Than Secret, A Day in the Life of Mothman by Kelsey Crawford and My Story, A Mother's Love, are both finalists for the 2022 Space Prize in short stories. So I would particularly say if you are one of the people who had a table at Space this past year, you are able to vote. I highly encourage you to check out both these stories. If you have not had a chance to see them, out to just bwhcomics@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you get digital copies of comics. Just so, not like, oh, you have to vote for it once you get it, but you can't vote if you haven't read it. So I'm happy to get you copies of that. And I do have Kelsey's permission to send that stuff as well. But yeah, and honestly, I'm not surprised at all that we got at least some of that stuff, because that Mothman comic's amazing.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah. And then there's this like terrible like then there's this terrible like half prose story in there, and
no. The reviews I've heard have been like, what is this?
Really? I was completely joking, just to be clear. In fact,
they've been good, but they've been like, what? There's a lot of text, but it works really well. It's weird.
Your story when that book came out is the one I was looking forward to the most. Like, I thought that was the coolest. I was so curious to see it because it was different from everything else in there. And apparently it worked, because now we actually have 2 stories like that in the next one. Because there's yours, and then also The Trial of Buck Regal is in a similar hybrid style.
Yeah, which is really cool for me to see.
Yeah, you're a trendsetter. Technically, Posey Simmons is a trendsetter, but you're the trendsetter with us because we haven't read Posey Simmons.
I'm just passing it along.
Passing the torch. One of these days, maybe we do an entire anthology that's just in that style.
Yes.
That would actually be wild. I don't know if I could participate. I have such a hard time writing prose. Really? It's why I do scripts and comics. For whatever reason.
It surprises me. I get to talk a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Prose has just always been a genre I've had a hard time with. With a good editor, I'd probably be able to do a lot better. But yeah, that's actually one of the things where you've been jumping in and helping out a lot as a proofreader.
Yeah.
You have been very helpful for getting a lot of that stuff straightened out. Especially, honestly, like I was an English major. I had like very high writing SAT 2. It wasn't part of the SAT 1 at the time. Like, I'm raised by grammar snobs, trained by grammar snobs, and I did not know the difference between like a hyphen and a dash and all of that stuff. And you were so specific about it.
Well, I mean, I'm a proofreader. That's one of my freelance jobs. So, and I was
you catch all the mistakes I make too, which there used to be a lot fewer, but I've gotten lazy.
Yeah. Well, and it's really hard to proofread your own stuff. So I'm always looking for someone. I think I usually have my mom proofread my stuff because she's also a writer. She's a poet, and she ran a poetry press for a while, and Egress Studio, if you're looking for it.
I actually didn't know that. She ran a press?
That's why I have this gigantic printer next to my desk, is because she ran a press and had a full-on, office-style toner printer. So now I have it, and I can print my own mini comics, and it's wonderful because it's full color.
That is really handy. One thing I wanted to shout out real quick, Jessica saying Angela's story is her favorite from Less Than Secret. Good taste.
Yeah.
Printing comics is actually one of the big things that is probably one of the biggest challenges for freelancers trying to figure out. Like, it's honestly been very tricky with this one too, because as soon as we decided to make the book color, the rules completely changed.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good call because gnomes, like in black and white, would have been a mistake.
I don't know if it would have been a mistake, but I think that putting them in color just makes it that much better. They just they crave the color. Like, I've got my cute little, this is not in the anthology, but I got this cute little black and white girl, and she works, but it's a coloring book, so it's begging for you to color it. The bright red and the colors,
and like watercolor is perfect for gnomes too. Like, there's something whimsical about it and out of a fairy tale. By the way, Rainer decided to try triggering you.
I'm gonna have nightmares now.
Just random tangent related to that. One of the people in our D&D group, actually, we've been talking about our characters writing memoirs and stuff like that, and this person decided that their character would just write like one long run-on sentence for theirs, like that's just how they talk. And so they did like 2 pages of it, and I decided to print it out and mark it like a teacher and grade it and write "see me after class," and I sent it to them, and they were like, "This is my worst nightmare. You know that, right?"
That's hilarious.
It was great.
I love that.
But yeah, like it's so helpful having a proofreader. It's so helpful having second sets of eyes. Like I've helped with book design for some other anthologies in the past, and just having that one voice that can look through and say this needs to be adjusted is really nice. Especially also like it's nice when the boss isn't necessarily saying this needs to be corrected, because you don't want to be a tyrant about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's actually that's one of the hard things about Awesome Possum is that I do edit all of the comics that come through, starting from like thumbnails and script, and so I have to give my notes like, well, this could be more clear. I think if you put a page break here instead of here, it might go better. But it's really hard to be like, now change it, because it's not
exactly
thing. But so I try to make it very clear that these are suggestions for the most part, unless you've completely misspelled a word or something. But usually, usually people just appreciate making their comic better. But
yeah, that's one of the advantages also of CCS, is that they were really good at teaching us how to accept feedback and recognize that all feedback's worth listening to, but it's not all worth following.
Yes.
Which is very helpful when you're dealing with proofreading. Like you gave me some grammar corrections in A Mother's Love that I applied a lot of them, but some I didn't because I was writing in dialect a little bit.
And so a lot of even in my my proofreading for like Chelsea Green Publishing on nonfiction, I'm like, well, I'm not sure if this was what you mean. Is this what you mean instead? And then sometimes it's correct, and sometimes they had it correct originally. So language is weird.
It is, and like there are different sets of rules. There are different like standards. One of the things that gets me in trouble when working on other people's stuff, I'm a relic in this aspect, but I genuinely think double spaces after sentences looks better.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
And it's not that it bothers me when other people don't do it, but it bothers so many people when I do it.
Yes. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, Ben.
I think it looks better. It's easier for me to read.
Yeah, and because some of the proofreading I do is I have to cut out so many double spaces after a sentence. It's just like a trigger now.
You can't just find I
do find replace, but it's just shocking how many people still do it, or some people don't do it consistently, which that really drives me nuts more.
The other places I tend to get in trouble with people are I still use the Oxford comma, and okay, good. You're in favor of the Oxford comma. It looks wrong to me when there's 3 things, but there's no comma before the end.
Yeah.
And I always struggle with where the comma goes when quotation marks are involved.
Right.
Because every time I do it the way I was taught, it looks wrong to me, but I also know that's technically not.
Yeah, I think you like to follow the British rules. The punctuation only goes inside the quotes if it's part of the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas,
or if the quote ended in punctuation of some kind, then I will do it sometimes. But yeah. But yeah, so that's the British way to do it. That's good to know. I forget where half these rule systems come from. Like I own 3 copies of Strunk and White, and I don't know if I actually read any of them.
Oh, well, and Strunk and White is kind of severe in their usage, their language usage. This is what you might want. Chicago Manual of Style. This is the guy. It has everything.
I laugh that you say that the Strunk and White is severe, and it's only like that thick.
I know, but the rules are never do this, always do this, and it's not the case.
And like that's something that I know that's where a lot of people get in trouble because language evolves.
Yeah, which took me a while to learn. I was very, very strict at first,
Same.
and have been loosening and loosening.
And it can have all kinds of complications and changes. A lot of social stuff. I don't want to get too deep into this necessarily, but I know a number of people in my parents' generation have a really hard time with the singular they because for a specific set of decades, that stopped being a thing, which is weird. Because I was always raised, singular they is a thing you can use if you don't know somebody's gender, and I've sort of been able to adapt that into other things. Yeah. But with like my parents' generation, they always were taught to do either he or she, or, and I'd never heard of this one. My mom actually brought it up. She. Do you know this one?
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's parenthesis s parenthesis he.
Okay, yeah.
For a while, that was apparently the big way to do things. I'd never learned that. But my mom was. What about she?
I think I've seen S/HE.
That might be it. I think it might be a slash and not parentheses. But like I said, I've never actually seen it.
Sometimes you'll do the S plural in parentheses.
Yeah, but all of that is all of that's examples of language evolving. The fact that British English and American English have different spellings or stuff, the dropped U's. Sure. The one that drives me crazy, I always like the British spellings that have two L's next to each other. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like
it's very confusing because I have to edit in both American and British for the Chelsea Green work that I do. It depends on what I'm working on, if it's American or British, which means I have to keep both sets of rules in my head. It gets very confusing.
And it's also funny because I know this is probably boring to a lot of people. We're going into like grammar nerd stuff.
Sorry.
But one of the funny things about it is this is actually still important. A lot of I feel like the younger generations, honestly, our generation included, but our generation and younger increasingly is less picky about grammar being good. There's a lot more leeway that happens. A lot of the way stuff's written on the internet, people are used to navigating a lot of this. But there's definitely a level of legitimacy that good grammar helps with, and certain doors that automatically close if you don't have it.
Well, and clarity. A lot of the more colloquial writing, it just cannot be as clear because you're not using language to mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Express it the same way. So that means that it's just bound to cause confusion.
I can't tell you how often I've opened up a thing on, say, Reddit or something like that, and someone's written the full story, and I can't get beyond a few lines because they haven't done any paragraphs. They've barely done periods. And just the way they've set it up, it's not that it's making that it's in any way triggering me or like I have to have it have perfect grammar, but that makes it readable. Like, there's so much. It's honestly, in a sense, that type of prose is the same type of stuff we do with comics.
Yeah, it needs to be able to communicate. And if you're not, clear, no one can, only some people are going to have the same brain that parses it in the same way. I work for a lawyer, and I email with almost all of our clients, and a lot of them send me texts, and I'm like, or emails, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're trying to tell me. This could mean 5 different things depending on where the punctuation was supposed to go. So I email back like, is this what you meant? Sorry.
It's like the old joke about comma placement being important with like, let's eat grandma or let's eat grandma.
Exactly. The panda eats, shoots, and leaves. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love those.
It was actually, it's funny because, like I said, I do kind of feel like there's been a movement away from people taking that seriously, but I've also read old comic scripts, and a lot of them did the same thing. Like I remember we got to see a Marvel script from the 80s or 90s, and it was just it was basically 2 pages that consisted of maybe 3 paragraphs of run-on sentences with no capitals. And I was like, okay, so this was a thing back then too.
Yeah, always. People, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you can communicate with the one person who needs to read it, or the whoever needs to read it, that's all you need to do. But if you're trying to communicate with everybody, there's you can be clear and use the rules. I was a technical writer for many, many years. And there was this one guy that I worked with who was just, it's not that he was, I guess I could say he was a terrible writer. He had to write out descriptions of the project he was working on so then I could turn that into the help for the customer. And he wrote 1 paragraph, was 1 big long sentence, and I had to handwrite the whole thing out and then diagram the sentence to figure out what he was saying. I think that was the worst one I ever got. That took like half a day to figure out what he meant.
Yeah, that I get exactly what you're talking about. Also, Jessica throws out there, I write a lot of instructions at work. It is a very different style of writing that requires you to be very picky about how things are phrased. Yeah. The Oxford comma is very important to me. Yeah.
Yes. And being a technical writer for like 8 or 9 years, some of the strictness in my language was very difficult to break when I went into like nonfiction prose style.
Yeah. One of the things that I've actually been thinking about that a lot for is I've been getting more and more into board games lately, because I actually have a board gaming group now that we can leave the house. And one of the things that we've discovered with a lot of the indie games is I realized that the biggest problem with them is the instructions were written by the game devs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very specific skill to take something from the expert's head and make it understandable to anyone else. Working with programmers, and it's a very specific skill that I actually have enjoyed since like grade school. So. Yeah,
and it's an important skill. Like, one of the things that cracks me up about these games is once you figure out how they work, they're pretty easy to play. Getting to that point is a nightmare. Like by comparison, we played Betrayal at House on the Hill when we were at CCS, right?
I have no idea.
That was the game where you're putting together like a horror mansion, and then at the end, someone becomes a traitor.
Probably not.
Okay.
I would probably be too chicken to play something like that.
Okay. But one of the things with that game is it is a fairly complicated game with some of the best written rules I've ever seen. Like, it's one of the few where it's like, yeah, you can pretty quickly figure out what to do. You can read through it. And if you're ever curious about a rule, you can find what you need to do. And it actually tells you exactly what to do.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah. Hold on. So many I need a synonym book. Yeah, that's the place where I run into problems with prose, is I never know how to just be like, he said, she said, he
it's called editing.
Exclaimed? Like,
the first draft always is terrible. That's what you need to know about prose.
Yeah, it's part of why I really like writing scripts, is that I can kind of just do the dialogue, and that's a lot easier to troubleshoot than anything else.
See, I'm the other way. I would rather work on prose than dialogue. A lot of mine are, a lot of my comics are dialogue light, and even my prose is dialogue light. And I often need to get better at adding more. Yeah. I work from home. I see the people who live on my property, and I go into town like once or twice a week, and that's all the people I see.
I get that so much. Like, one of the things that keeps me, like, I'm currently visiting family in Virginia again. And one of the things that keeps me going back to Columbus is I have friends that will force me to see them. Because it's really easy for me to be like, I'm just going to stay inside and work all the time and not go out at all.
Since we got this house, I now have the space to invite people over. So I have people over for crafting once a month, which has been very, very nice.
Yes. That seems like a great way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's, so actually one thing I did want to also go to, just because, changing topics a little bit. The Maker Comics project you did, was that your first time doing a major project that was collaborative? Because your 2 stories so far have been solo projects.
Yeah. No, Abe and I actually used to do a webcomic together
Mm.
where he was a writer and I was the artist, and we kind of collaborated. He would write, I would edit, and then I would draw and he would edit.
Mhm.
So I had a little bit of experience. That one was weird because I didn't pick the artist and we had basically nothing to do with each other. So like I got to see the art and comment on it when it was, coming in after a proofreading pass or whatever.
Mhm.
But I didn't. Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, for a second, I think it was Robin Chapman and Benjamin Wilson picked the artist, and he nailed it. He did such a good job. And I mean, he sent in like character designs. So I got to be like, well, if you could, change this a little, but I gave him very generic, like, this character is, these two people mixed.
Right.
Vincent Price and Mr. Rogers or something.
That is the spookiest, friendliest person ever.
And he nailed it.
So then you've actually done collaborative projects, one where you were strictly the artist and one where you were strictly the writer.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
I'm usually the artist. No, I liked both. The only thing I like about writing better is it's way faster. A lot less time. Art is, that takes a lot of work, a lot of time.
Sorry, just updating the ticker. We just had a generous donation of $5 more.
We broke 3,000 then.
We broke 3,000. That was driving me crazy. So nice to see. Thank you, Jessica. I saw your comment. But yeah, do you prefer working, like it is a lot less work, but do you prefer doing one of those single parts, or would you rather do the entire thing from start to finish?
I think I'd rather just do the entire thing.
Yeah.
I really enjoy both parts, especially now that I'm doing the hybrid comics. I'm working on a longer, like novel length, funny sci-fi murder mystery. And I think it's going to end up being a hybrid, but it will be the longest thing I have done. Threadbare Memories is currently the longest thing I've done, and that's like 120, 116 pages, something like that. But that was my COVID lockdown project. I finally had time. I didn't have all of the jobs, and I had time to just finish it. Finally, I'd been working on it since before CCS. Yeah.
So a pre-CCS project is making it. That's pretty awesome. I've pretty much shelved my pre-CCS projects. It's like I can do better now.
That's what I'm doing. I'm completely starting over. I had drawn 30 pages at 11 by 17, and it was more of a fantasy setting. And now Threadbare Memories, it has turned into a sci-fi. I completely rewrote it. It's the same idea, but it's also completely different. It was originally about a coin-operated boy from a Amanda Palmer song. And then the coin idea went out the window, and it wasn't a boy anymore, and it changed dramatically. And then I have another one I'm working on. If you can find in the Wayback Machine, a picture very similar to this. This is Umbrella Girl. I started drawing her. Oh my gosh, 2012. It looks nothing like this.
That feels like art out of a Neil Gaiman book.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? Like that feels like a Coraline type moment or something.
So it's going to be every other page will be an illustration, and then this is like a natural science journal from her. So it's going to be a combination of the two. Sorry,
show it again.
So this one, and the writing isn't necessarily supposed to be read.
Yeah.
Can if you want to. So it'll be interesting. It's one of the topics I want to talk about with Abe on Dodos Discuss. Is kind of figuring out what that story is. I have an idea, I have a setup and a character, but I don't know where it's going to go. And I'm not one of those fly by the seat of my pants, just go people. I'm a planner, hardcore.
Yeah. No, I get that completely. With the mystery book I'm working on right now, and my previous mystery books too, part of what's been tricky for me is I know where everyone starts and I know where everyone ends, and I just have to kind of make up the middle until I get there. But what's weird is once I do, usually like everything falls into place and I get to the right spot. But
I have a book you might want to read, too, by the same person, Wired for Story and Story Genius by Lisa Cron, something like that. Cron. Really, really cool. It's, she's a neuroscientist, so she takes like how our brain thinks and looks into why stories work and how we can use that as a writer, as a creator. Really cool stuff.
I will need to check those out then, because this project basically has been shelved for a while, just because I've had other things going on. I've been making this is our second anthology project that we've organized, and even with Rainer running it, there's a lot to do. And it's one of the it is funny. Like what got me doing it again is like going back to the space prizes. The second Letters book also got nominated for best graphic novel, which again, if you're one of the people voting, reach out to me. I'll make sure you get a copy. But,
wait, for this space prize?
Yes, because it covered. Yeah, I have two.
I know that. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was pushing Less Than Secret because that was what affected the group directly. But I have also been, I was really excited about that too. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. It covered several years because during the book came out during COVID, and so it kind of messed up the launch for it. And I'd kind of been like, yeah, I'd like to do more in this story, but not a lot of traction's happening. And getting that nomination, I was just like, oh, well, I got to keep writing. Yeah. And I also figured out that trying to write the entire book in order was part of why I was getting held up, because this one's complicated. I basically have 4 different protagonists that are being followed at all times. So every step of the way, I had to figure out what are all 4 people doing. Mm-hmm. And I was really having a trouble getting to where I needed to get. And I actually figured out writing it this time that part of the problem is there's a lot of important backstory information that's happening in flashbacks. And I figured I just need to write the flashback scenes so that I have them and I don't have to do exposition to pop them in there. So
right, yeah, right in chronological order.
Yeah, exactly. Well, technically none of it's chronological, but not even in the storytelling order.
Right. Yeah. I think you'll really like Story Genius, because her whole thing is start with the first scene, where everybody starts, then the end scene, the very, very last scene, so you know where you're going, and then you figure out everything that needs to happen in the middle. Yeah,
that's exactly how I write.
Yeah, you'll like this book. It's really good. It's got a lot of good points to think about, especially if you have multiple protagonists.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to need to do, because multiple protagonists really makes it hard.
Yeah, I have a hard time with multiple people. I often do single person stories. Threadbare Memories has 3 characters. I'm working on this other GNOME one, weirdly enough, that also focuses on a good half of the story is one character. And I need to figure out how to do more than one person. Maybe it's because I work from home alone 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Yeah.
See, that helps me because it's there's nobody around. I'll just do conversations in my head with everybody. And that really helps with writing dialogue, because it just actually have that stuff happen. A couple comments from the chat. I need to catch back up on Dodo's Discuss. Thank you for watching Dodo's Discuss, because it's really hard to get podcasts going. I'm looking into it also.
Yeah.
Also,
to get back into it.
Also, a question from a little while back from Rainer is, what types of crafting do you do?
What don't I do? I obviously knit. Mm-hmm. I can crochet, but I don't super enjoy it. I do some paper cut. I do cross stitch and embroidery. I do Sculpey. I do this kind of thing.
Oh, hold on, I'll make it big.
This is
from Zelda, isn't it?
This is just a little Sasquatch dude.
Oh, it's a Sasquatch dude. It looked kind of like a Goron.
Covered in embroidery. I think the pattern is from Little Deer, but I obviously adjusted it for my own purposes, made a cute little face. I have a gnome actually in the works that I don't have up here, so I can't show you.
How did you make that face? Because it looks a lot like, honestly, it looks like an ET face.
It does. It's Sculpey.
Oh.
Yeah, Sculpey with, oh man, he's dusty. With little black bead eye things. Thank you. And now I'm all blurry and I don't know how to make my camera refocus.
You did exactly what you should do. I don't know why it hasn't decided to refocus yet.
Yeah, I like this webcam, but it's
weird.
How about this? Right. That's one of my favorite things. It has a little flap, so I don't have to worry about it.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Sorry, I guess I'm going to be blurry from now on.
It's an improvement. I'm just kidding.
Right?
Yeah. We'll say you put Vaseline on the lens just to get that vignette look. But yeah, it's like all the extra crafting stuff is always is really cool to me.
So this closet behind me is also full, top to bottom, of art supplies. Acrylic, watercolor, ink, graphite, lino cut, like you name it, I probably have something, except oil paint.
I am envious. Like I've been trying to cut back on a lot of that.
Well, since we moved, I finally could unpack everything and see what I have. Wow. Wowie. I did not realize I had just this much stuff. It's a little overwhelming. I don't know what to do with it all. I don't have time to use it.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Like for a long time, I would just pick up stuff because I'm like, I could do some cool art with this. And the more that I do digital, the less I'm using any of the traditional stuff.
See, I'm the opposite. The more I do digital, the more I want to do traditional. I like digital for pencils, but then when I go to the finished piece, I want to do traditional because most of my work is on the computer. I just can't look at the computer anymore.
Yeah.
I do proofreading digitally, copy editing, lettering, all of that is on the computer. So I'm spending no less than 8 hours a day at the computer. I don't want to go spend more.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Like, it makes me wonder if I need to be doing less screen time because I almost always have a screen in front of me these days.
Yeah, that's why I would say traditional needs to make a comeback.
Yeah, I'm very much in the camp that both traditional and digital have a great place in comic art, which I know for a while was controversial. Actually, that brings up an interesting topical thing coming up. What do you think of some of the stuff about AI generated art that's been coming out?
I don't know a whole lot about it. I do find it kind of interesting. I think some of the discussion I've heard about it has been interesting, like coming up with layouts, new layouts, having it come up with 40 layouts for you to choose from to help you kind of think outside the box and refresh your brain. As far as finished digital art, I mean, what's the point?
Yeah.
Artist. It just doesn't sound very fun to me.
Yeah, that's kind of my position on it, that even if you get AI to the point where they can make coherent, clear, gorgeous looking stories, a big part of what you're getting when you get a comic is an individual person's voice. And even having that AI comic out there doesn't change the fact that you and I have stories that we want to tell. And that would be different from whatever the AI told. I also had not heard about the layout thing. That is really cool.
Real? But that's one of the things I heard someone say they would find an interesting use for.
Yeah. I suspect eventually AIs are going to become another tool in the arsenal like digital drawing.
Yeah.
But I get that they're controversial now.
How about I try stopping my camera and starting it again?
Okay, go for it.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. Meanwhile, Rayner says, my main problem is that it's mostly trained on art made by artists who did not consent to their stuff being used. That's a big problem.
Yes.
And that is one of the reasons that people have legitimate concerns with AIs. It's funny because that was a later argument that I heard framed, even though I know it's one of the more important ones. The first argument I always heard is that AIs will replace actual artists. And I'm like, I don't see that happening anytime in the near future.
I mean, I think in a similar way to photography taking over illustrators in magazines, there could be something along that line for the more commercial stuff. But anything that's creative just seems like there has to be a person in there.
Yeah, and currently the person in AI projects is figuring out the keywords, which is actually kind of an interesting part of it, is specifically telling the AI what to do. Do you know about the DeviantArt thing that happened recently?
I don't think so, no.
So DeviantArt is, my understanding, and people in the chat correct me if I got this wrong, is that they actually wanted to get fodder for their own AI program. And they basically said you have to actively opt out of every single illustration you've ever posted to not have your stuff be searchable by this. Which, DeviantArt's been around for decades at this point. People have posted thousands of things and having to go through
my original Umbrella Girl art.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of people who were not happy about that. They did apparently change it so it's possible to completely opt out if you want. But that was a huge problem a couple weeks ago where they basically just blanket said, we got rights to it.
Oh, I guess maybe I should log into my DeviantArt. Not that there's anything good on there. I guess I don't really care. Yeah,
this is one of those spaces where everybody has to be incredibly careful with where you put stuff online. And I feel like an old man lecturing about this because we've all been told it for years.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I started posting stuff there in like 2011, 2012. Well, it's been 10 years. I haven't touched it in over 5. It's hard to remember where all my stuff is.
Yeah.
Like, technically, I've got a few different Blogspot blogs. I don't know where they are.
Also, speaking of old people yelling at the moon, hi, Abe. I'm sure big companies will find it useful. They'll be able to release new work by dead cartoonists and milk them through the afterlife. I mean, like, I get, full respect to Jim Davis, but that absolutely could be done by an AI at this point. He's already
do any of the drawing.
Yeah, I don't know the last time you looked at a Garfield comic, but it basically looks like clip art at this point. It's been so standardized.
Man, that was one of my original inspirations of comics are rad was Garfield. I've got like 5 collections over here.
Oh yeah, like I grew up reading Garfield too. I had a bunch of those like thick short books.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a part of why I did cost paint and strips. Is like I grew up with that kind of thing, and I love those collections. Yeah. Speaking of cost paint, by the way, if anyone has read my little webcomic, one thing they might recognize: some of the only characters that are actually modeled after real people are the tablers. We've got one tabler that's modeled after Kelsey, and 2 of them that are modeled after Angela and Abe.
Yep. Go figure out who it is. Yeah,
which it's funny because I originally wasn't going to do that at all. I didn't want anybody to be like, yeah, this is a 1-to-1. But I then just, while working on the style, randomly drew you and Abe, and I was just like, I love these drawings. Can I use these characters?
And we were like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
we wormed our way into your brain.
That's right.
Never get rid of us.
And what's funny is I usually use you as those characters as an excuse for like all the crazy insecure stuff that goes on in my head. Well, like so much, like those are the most cathartic strips because they're all about how crazy it is trying to make it a living as an artist.
Yeah. No, I always enjoy those ones.
Wait, really? Hold on. Abe never noticed?
Okay.
You read my comic. Anyway.
I remember noticing. We've had the conversation.
Yeah. Well, the other funny thing is like Abe often wears like blaze orange, but he wears it's a like micro fleece, right? Like it's a
he doesn't have it anymore. I forgot that he wore that. Yeah. He used to wear that all the time.
But for some reason when I was drawing it in my head, I gave him one of those big puffy jackets.
Yeah.
And I've had people make fun of me because I
Yes,
I
that's
knew I
amazing.
forgot. Yeah. And it's funny because I remember when Abe looked at it, he just went, I don't have a puffy jacket like that, but maybe I should get one.
And it's weirdly cold up here.
Mhm.
Technically, Bellingham is farther north than Vermont, but we get way more temperate weather. But
Yeah.
it's been very cold lately. So he might need to get a little puffy jacket there, Abe.
That'd be fair. I actually have had people make fun of me because I often draw home scenes with the characters, and he's still wearing the jacket inside.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
why?
he wears his outdoor jacket. He keeps his shoes on. He's just dressed to go all the time.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was. I definitely had some people call me out on that. I was like, why is he wearing that indoors, like while doing the dishes? And I'm like, so you know who he is.
Because he's high.
Oh man, I don't think I've had any of the characters do drugs in the comic. That'd be a funny thing to have covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely drinking. I've had definite jokes about that.
I mean, they're cartoonists. I was in a drink and drug group in Seattle, and due to unfortunate circumstances, we had to switch from a bar to a coffee shop for a few months. We got so much work done at the coffee shop, but no one said a word. And we were so chatty at the bar.
That's funny. Yeah, that's one of the things that's just starting to recover in Columbus. There is a drink and draw event that's been going on. I haven't been to it since before the pandemic, just because the timing doesn't really work for me. But there used to also be a coffee meetup, and the vibes of the two were way different.
Yeah.
The bar one, I hear it's changed a lot, but it used to be a lot of there used to be a lot more complaining about comics at the time. But what was great about the coffee one is that everyone there was super excited to be doing anything about comics. It felt like being back in comic school.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the one we went to at the bar. I mean, it was the same one that went to the coffee shop, but everyone was just so excited about comics. It was just such a fun group to be in. And it's one of the things I miss from Seattle. I don't miss a lot from Seattle, and that's one of them. And
I do want to be clear, just because it's a big part of the Columbus scene now. I have heard that the drink and draw that's run by Jeremy Stoll is great now. I just haven't been able to go back because it's on the other end of town for me. And I have Dungeons and Dragons that day usually.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
We have a drink and draw up here in Bellingham, but it's usually on a night that I can't go. And I actually don't know where they hold it anymore, because they used to have it at a coffee shop that's gone under now, which is too bad. It was cute.
That's been one of the saddest things with all this, are the little businesses that have vanished.
Yeah. And they hung on for so long. And they had just moved to a bigger space, but Bellingham is going through some real growing problems. So yeah, lots of.
I could see that being tough. I imagine, like, being in a city was interesting, but being like, Bellingham's what, 2 hours from the next big city, Seattle?
It's like an hour and a half north of Seattle. There's like Everett is pretty big, and that's an hour away, but it's between here and Seattle.
Yeah.
And Vancouver, BC is like 45 minutes north. We're right on the border.
I forgot you're closer to Canada than you are to Seattle.
Yeah. The border is like 25, 30 minutes from here. Hour and a half to Seattle.
I kind of miss going to Canada. That was always fun when we had an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Abe and I went there for our honeymoon. We went to Victoria, and it was super, super fun. And then there was lockdown like 3 months later. So we haven't been able to go back, but I really, really look forward to going back. We have so much fun. Victoria is beautiful.
Does Canada still have quarantine rules for crossing the border, or do they lighten that up?
It's definitely lightened up. You might have to have like a vaccination card or something. But we could totally go if we wanted to. We just don't have the time. Yeah, no,
I get it. It's traveling is so many more steps right now. So
yeah. And right now I definitely don't want to fly, which is nice that we can just drive to Victoria. You used to be able to take a ferry from near here straight to Victoria, but they took it away. I think they might be bringing it back, but that's like the perfect way to go.
I know there's a good Amtrak line between Seattle and Portland, because I looked into that because I have friends in both cities.
Right.
Is there anything like that would get you up to Canada? Because trains seem pretty good right now.
Well, not that I know of. We took the Bolt bus last time, and I'm a terrible traveler. I get, I have the travel headaches because I can't pressurize, and but if we want to get back to comics, I haven't been able to go to a comic show in BC, and I really want to try one of those. They sound really interesting.
Yeah, Canadian comic shows sound pretty cool. We've all talked about going to TCAF at some point.
I almost got to go one year, and then I had to bail at the last minute. And I can't remember why, but I was so devastated.
That's always the worst. That was me this year with SPX. Like I literally had to bail the day before I was going to go because I had a COVID exposure.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
It absolutely sucks. But full credit to them, gave me a full refund, and I asked if I could be on the invite list for next year, and it sounds positive. So
good.
They didn't want us coming if we were sick. Like that would have been awful.
Yeah. They need to, appreciate the people who are like, I might be sick. I should not come. Yes, please. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. And like, I feel like people are going to notice the cons that do that kind of stuff well. There were definitely been a few cons that have been crossed off my list based on how they handled everything.
Yeah. Short Run, the minis comics one in Seattle, instead of doing their yearly show in early fall, they've been doing a monthly like showcase of a single artist. So it's not as cool, but they've also put out a little pamphlet that went out to all of the, Seattle and beyond comic shops. It was here's a bunch of people who would have been at Short Run. Here's their comic.
That's awesome. Like, because figuring out digital cons has been a struggle.
Yeah.
I basically got to do one that I really liked, and the rest have been kind of weak.
What's the difference?
The one that they did, everyone was a Twitch streamer. Like they all had to have a Twitch account, and the way it was done is there's a feature on Twitch called auto host, where for anyone who's not familiar, if you are not streaming on your channel and you have someone listed on auto host and they're streaming, your channel will automatically reroute to them. So they used that to set up panels. Basically, they gave everybody like 1 to 2 hour slots, and it would then link to their channel. And they just bring everybody over, and that worked great. I did an hour-long graphite wash demo with people giving requests. I think I had a different drawing every 5 minutes. It went really fast. Well, graphite wash is fast, but I was like taking fan art requests and stuff like that. It's one of the biggest hits I've had on my channel, period. And if I were to do another, like I actually talked about trying to organize a digital con, that's how I do it, because Twitch really makes that kind of thing. It's the best version of it I've seen. And you can also set it up to like do replays later if you want for all of that. We are beginning to run out low on time, so we are going to open up the floor to any questions. Oh, hey!
Have a guest.
2 cryptids.
This is Wally. That one's Abe.
Yep.
This is the good one, though.
Oh, hey! Also from Vermont, Greg Giordano.
Hello.
Member of Vermont Comic Creators, one of the other big networks in Vermont that we were both members of, I believe.
Yeah.
Excited to see everybody there. Poppy!
Yes. He's a bitey little sweetheart.
What's his name again?
Dr. Wallace Goobers.
Dr. Wallace Goobers.
Yeah, Dr. Wallace Goobers, explorer of the undergrowth, scaler of stumps, licker of slugs.
What's his doctorate in?
Noses. Wet noses. We actually had something that it was for, and now I've forgotten what it was.
I'm sorry, MD or PhD?
Oh, definitely PhD.
PhD in wet noses. Okay. That is a great dog name.
Yes. Technically, he has an Instagram, but there's only like 3 posts on it.
Of course. And yet it's verified. Weird.
Yeah.
No. Only cost $8 apparently. Anyway. Actually, there's an interesting question because I know there's been a lot of tumult with Twitter lately, and I've seen a few cartoonists talking about alternate social media platforms. Have you checked any of them out?
No, I've flagged in my head that, yeah, maybe I'll switch. But I mean, I haven't even closed my Facebook account yet.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I think we're both probably equal levels of burned out with social media.
Yeah, I'm so bad. It's, kind of necessary as a freelance cartoonist. You have to post consistently and something meaningful, but I'm so busy most days. I maybe once a week, if I'm lucky, I have something new to show. Inktober was really good for me for that.
Yeah.
I had a lot of posts. I got 2 posts out of every illustration because I did the ink version and the watercolor version.
One of the things that Greg is also throwing out there is that he's loving Mastodon,
Okay.
which is one of the other platforms, I believe.
Yeah, I've heard a bunch of people talk about it. It's on my list to check out, but every time I learn something new about it, I'm a little overwhelmed and terrified.
Yeah, no, I'm very much in the camp of I will wait to see what everyone switches to and then switch.
Mastodon seems to be in the running for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the camp of using social media specifically when I need to announce something or just set up a regular post and not look at it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it's an okay tool. I'm posting ghosting, so it's not helping that much with their algorithms, but
it has to be interactive. It's so much work and so important, and I really need to be better at it.
By the way, Greg says that he's willing to help with any of that stuff. We definitely appreciate it.
Yes, noted for sure.
But yeah, that's one of those things that pretty much all cartoonists have accepted. On some level, you have to do something with. It's kind of like how at one point we all needed to have a website, and even that's changed.
You still need to have a website.
Yeah, but
you need a place that people can go from.
Yeah,
one link that you can say, just go here. It's all there. Even if it's, Linktree. I would say a website's better, but
yeah, it is one of those things that it is useful to have. I don't know how much business you end up getting from it, but it's good to have one place where you control your image.
Yeah,
that's the big thing it's about.
And then it doesn't matter if you can't use Twitter anymore, if you can't use Instagram, you still have that website that people had a link to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mine is set up basically similar to, it's like Linktree plus pages for portfolio stuff and links to reading everything.
Yeah. My page is a little bit of chaos right now, but weirdly, I've been trying to push Twitch more for a lot of stuff, and that's been weird to have on a comic website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not figured out how to incorporate video consistently. For a while, I was doing time-lapse recordings of all of my traditional work, but since I got my new office, I don't have the setup for it, but I just ordered a lamp that's going to make it really nice to do time-lapse recordings. I'm very excited. It should get here in like a month, though.
Another vote for Linktree. Been very cool since I never got my website online.
Yeah, I just used Wix, Wix.com. Very easy to set up.
I used Weebly. I am thinking, Rainer and I have talked a little bit about what we would do with a CanonWrite website, which at some point we need to have. And
it's the Awesome Possum one. It's opossum.flyingdodostudio.com.
Is that that's through Wix also?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the Awesome Possum stuff.
I think what we might end up doing is going with a I blank on the name every single time. It's one of the
Squarespace?
Not Squarespace, but it's one of the build from scratch type of setups.
Oh, so not one of the
No, not Weebly or Wix or Squarespace. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I forget every single time. Just it leaves my head immediately. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Yay. We got a pledge. But yeah, it's been I don't know. This stuff is always complicated. You just need a place that looks good. That's the main thing. Just like one place where people can find your stuff, know what you're up to.
Yeah, that you can control without fear.
Exactly. And like that's one of the things that also constantly changes. We've got it used to be that that's how a lot of web cartoonists made their money, is having their own website and having ads from Project Wonderful.
Yep. And now that's sadly gone. We did that for a little while with the Jerks, the webcomic Abe and I did.
Yeah. I had it very briefly for Letters of the Devil and Cospain. And that was a really cool place. And when they shut down, they basically said, nobody's using like these banner ads to find comics anymore. Everything is through social media platforms, so we can't keep up.
Well, and there were so many ad blockers that it was moot. Didn't really do anything anymore.
It's true. It's actually one of the reasons I never use ad blockers. I know I'm one of the last people left who doesn't use ad blockers, but
I'm too lazy.
My big thing is, for the most part, ads don't bother me too much. And I also recognize that in a lot of cases, it's paying creators.
Yeah.
And I don't mind as much if the larger businesses don't get the money, but I don't want to take money out of like food from someone else's mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes when I do a Google search, if a bigger company has an ad pop up with their website without being an ad right below it, I'll click on the ad just so they have to spend that like 1 cent, half a cent.
That's kind of funny.
I'm like, the money. You gotta use.
I had, and I honestly, my big problem is no matter what settings I turn on or off, I always get political ads in October and November.
Yeah, that's why I paid for Hulu with no ads, is specifically to get rid of all of the political ads. It was just overwhelming.
I almost did that in 2020, but I decided I would not be bullied by YouTube. Thank you. But full respect to anyone who made the choice to pay. Like, mental health is more important than pride, but I let my pride win.
More just sheer annoyance and rage. Like, what a waste of, don't interrupt Bob's Burgers with your garbage.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite is like when an ad randomly pops up at like the cliffhanger moment and you're like, oh, go for a second so I can skip you.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, and if you won't let me do that, at least pay me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact: as of making this video, this is being broadcast to 3 channels at the same time, none of which are paying me. So don't feel bad about blocking ads on these channels for now.
Yeah, it's funny when I tell people some of the books that I've done lettering for First Second. They're like, "Do you get royalties?" I'm like, "No, it's a flat fee."
That's actually surprising for Maker Comics. I would have.
Maker Comics is not, because I'm the author. I will get royalties on that, but if I'm just a letterer or designer, it's just a flat thing, because it's not really my project at all. I'm just like a computer monkey. That
makes more sense.
Let me just go here. This text goes here. Yeah.
I got paid I've been paid an hourly rate to do book design for other people's stuff, and like I don't expect anything after that. I've got copies to sell at cons. That's plenty.
Well, and usually part of my deal is that I will put my information on the copyright page, book designed by blah, blah, blah. So then, people are like, ooh, this is well designed, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And they'll know who did it and can find me.
At least you want the credit in there somewhere. Like when stuff gets put up on IMDb, or not IMDb, Goodreads and stuff like that. It's nice to have those extra credits there. That was one of the wild things about Less Than Secret, is that was the first writing credit that showed up on Goodreads for a lot of people.
Yeah, I am the second Angela Boyle on Goodreads as a creator. So mine, I have to enter with 2 spaces between my first and last name, or I have to email them every single time to fix the link, which is
that's annoying. I apologize for that annoyance, but
what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's one of the few advantages of having such a weird name as Ben Wright-Heuman.
Yeah, Angela Boyle is an incredibly boring name. It's very Irish from what I can see, which doesn't surprise me. My family is quite Irish. I get lots of weird Irish news on my Google updates. What's under this search name?
I actually had a funny thing, because I was very careful about what went up that was tied to me online before I started going to comics and was like, now I can control my image. But for a long time, if you Googled my name, I did like a Google image search, I'd be like the 20th image to come up. Like I was so deep in there. My friend John, who we always used to joke with that he and I were twins because we looked weirdly similar in college, shows up before me. Like for a long time that was going on.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, I think we're getting close to the hour and a half mark. That's probably a good time to wrap this up. Angela, where can people find your work besides in What the Gnomes Know?
All over the place, but the best place to go is angelabcomics.com. It's also Angela B Comics on Twitter and Instagram. I use Instagram more than Twitter. Yes. I try to use Angela B Comics everywhere that I can if you're looking for me.
And like we said, it's good to have a hub just like that.
Yeah, because this has links to this live stream, to the Kickstarter, to all my portfolios, to my stores, to the website. I have all of my webcomics on, and Maker Comics has a link to that. So I just have links to everything right on the front page. And I should point out an e-newsletter that you can sign up for, and then you will get notices about things like this.
Newsletters are good.
Yeah, I need to get more people in there. So
yeah.
Sign up.
Yeah. You can also find my work at bwhcomics.com. That is a hub for it. I am also at BWH Comics on Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. You can also find my Weeb comic Cospain, a Weeb comic about cosplay and convention craziness, at cospaincomic.com. We're doing this interview today specifically for What the Gnomes Know, a comics anthology now up on Kickstarter. tinyurl.com/gnomecomics is the easiest way to get there. We have had few extra pledges since starting the stream an hour and a half ago. We're up to 3,013, which means we are less than 500 away from our next stretch goal, which will not only give you guys a Q&A section that'll go inside of the book and answer some questions about how the process happened, what other types of work people do. Basically, if you've seen Lesson Secret, you know the stuff we're talking about. And it'll also let us give our contributors additional copies that they can sell on their own for extra money. Beyond that, we're hoping to hit the next level up, which is 4,500, which will let us do behind the scenes images, works in progress, stuff like that, and also pay our creators more. So that's really what we're hoping to hit before the Kickstarter ends in the next 10 days. As a side note, you can also, one last thing, you can also find, if you go to the link tree for BWH Comics, that's linkter.ee/BWH Comics. One of the first options is a coloring page challenge we have, where if you download the image, color it, and post it on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtags What the Gnomes Know, Gnome Comics, and the URL at the bottom of the screen, tinyurl.com/gnomecomics, you will enter a drawing to get a free original illustration. So that will go ahead and wrap things up for us. Angela, anything you want to do to sign off?
No. I had to sign off like you and Kelsey, and then I forgot it.
Yeah. I think to do a team.
Discuss.
Yeah.
Sorry for wasting your time, and I hope your day gets better.
That's a great one, actually. I love that. All right. But from the rest of us at CanonWrite Productions, thank you very much. Rock on, guys, and never stop drawing.
Now I'm off to draw your color comic page.
Yay!